Cami Knight joins us in the studio. Good evening to you, Cami. You've been following the Brics summit taking place in Russia, in Kazan. Putin, of course, hosting. One of the main issues on the agenda includes Putin's idea for a payment system to rival SWIFT. Now, Russia, of course, has been banned from the SWIFT system because of what it's doing in Ukraine.
Exactly. You know, we know that Russia has been heavily sanctioned since invaded Ukraine back in 2022, and part of those sanctions included cutting off Russian banks from SWIFT, an international financial network that allows the smooth transfer of money across borders. Now, the Brics are a growing group of countries. This year it admitted 4 new members, with more applying, but its 9 current members already account for 26% of the world economy and 45% of the world population. So this summit is Russia's opportunity to gain wider support for an alternative payment system. It hopes involving key players like China, India, Saudi Arabia and Brazil might make the new system immune from US sanctions and allow Russian businesses to make cross-border payments in a much faster and cheaper way. It's not the only way that Russia is using or considering as a way of bypassing sanctions. It's also turning to crypto. It recently approved a law that allows businesses to use cryptocurrencies in international trade. And as the Brics look to move away from dollars, a possibility that's also on the table is the creation of a new Brics currency. But not everyone is on board. Ahead of the summit, Vladimir Putin said it was more of a long-term prospect than a current consideration.
As far as the Brics unified currency is concerned, at the moment this issue is premature. We need to be very careful. We need to act gradually and slowly. And at this moment, we're exploring the possibilities of expanding the use of national currencies and creating tools that would make such work safe.
A UN Development Programme report out today shows the Palestinian poverty rate will double to 74% as the war in Gaza continues. It estimates that the impacts of war have set back development in Gaza by as much as 69 years. Across the Palestinian economy, nearly 3/3 of the population would be pushed into poverty, and GDP would shrink by more than 35% in 2024 compared with a no-war scenario, with unemployment rising to almost 50%. In Gaza, almost everyone will have been pushed below the poverty line. Earlier, I spoke to the UN Development Programme Regional Director, Abdullah Al-Dardari, about what the recommendations are going forward in terms of helping rebuild an economy in Gaza. Take a listen.
3 major points. First, there is so much we can do today, even under the fire, like start working on solid waste management, on debris management, on providing support to keep the small and medium enterprises alive, and so on. And we are doing all of that at UNDP, but we need still financial support. Second is to start planning and be ready for the day after, not start planning on the day after. But the third point is that only through a combination of humanitarian and development activities and support, the Palestinian economy could recover should restrictions on Palestinian labor be lifted and all the money collected by the Israeli authorities to the Palestinians, to the Palestinian Authority, is released to the Palestinian government. Only then Palestine has a chance of regaining the 2022 GDP by 2034. So that's the best case scenario we have ahead of us.
With just 2 weeks to go before the US presidential election, polls remain extremely tight. But when it comes to fundraising, Kamala Harris is far ahead of Donald Trump. The Democratic candidate's campaign and allies set a record for the biggest fundraising quarter ever, raising $1 billion in the 3 months to the end of September. That's more than Republican candidate has raised in nearly 2 years. Brian Quinn has the details.
Okay. Another day, another $1 million check from Elon Musk to a registered voter in a U.S. swing state, as the tech mogul throws his weight and his fortune behind Donald Trump. The strategy of questionable legality is just the latest way big money is playing a big role in the U.S. presidential election.
Well, all of the polls obviously are very, very close. So anything, people have said, well, it might help a little at the margin. Well, maybe this year, a little at the margin is all you need.
That little at the margin comes with a big price tag. The Trump campaign spent $78 million in September, $53 million on ad buys. That figure, though, dwarfed by Democrat Kamala Harris, whose campaign spent $270 million for the month, $222 million on media. When it comes to fundraising, the Republican is getting left in the dust. Harris set a new record for the most recent quarter, raising $971 million in just 3 months, well more than the $894 million Trump's campaign has raised since January of 2023. Harris raking in cash from 4.9 million separate donors compared to Trump's 1.4 million. When super PACs, the political action committees that can raise unlimited sums from companies and individual megadonors, are taken into account, Trump narrows the gap. Including direct donations and super PACs, the Democratic side has raised nearly $1.9 billion since January of 2023 to Trump's $1.5 billion. While campaigns generally try to spend all their cash by Election Day, this year could be different, as both sides eye the potential for post-election legal battles over the outcome.
The former CEO of Abercrombie Fitch has been arrested and charged with running a prostitution and international sex trafficking business. Federal prosecutors say Mike Jeffries and 2 other defendants used force and fraud, along with coercion, to engage in violent and exploitive sexual acts. They also say 15 victims are mentioned in the indictment, but that dozens and dozens of other men were exploited. Let's hear from the US attorney.
But while Jeffries was the CEO of one of the most recognizable clothing retailers in the world, he was using his power, his wealth, and his influence to traffic men for his own sexual pleasure and that of his romantic partner, Matthew Smith. They spent millions of dollars on a massive infrastructure to support this operation and maintain its secrecy.
Mike Jeffries and his partner making their initial appearances in federal court today, but a truly harrowing case there, Mark.
Cammy Knight with the business. Thank you very much indeed. Pleasure to see you. Next.